So there was a point in my life where I'd been improvising for a reasonable amount of time, and I kind of knew my way around the neck a little bit. But there was a range of tempos that really kind of challenged me. I couldn't figure out what to do over them. And songs that tend to use them, there were all sort of medium to up-tempo songs, and you'd hear a lot of songs like this in country music, some rock music as well. They all kind of needed the same approach in my head. They all kind of wanted pentatonic lines rather than 3 notes per string shredding or anything like that. And they also wanted sort of a patter of 16th notes playing all the time through them as well, or at least to give that feel about them. And you needed to sit in the pocket when you were playing them as well, and that's really what I was struggling with. So a song that really typified it for me was Sweet Home Alabama. You know, it has that kind of feel about it, where you just want to be able to patter away at these 16th notes, but you don't want to shred at full speed, and you need to be able to lock into the beat as well. And that's what I was trying to achieve. And the way I overcame this was I found 3 or 4 simple patterns that I could work on that allowed me to build this kind of technique, to build this sort of pitter-patter of notes. And then I could take the motor skills that I developed from working on those exercises and bring them into sort of freestyling on the guitar. And, you know, you had those motor skills, or I had those motor skills available, and then I could use them and just sort of go with the flow. And so what I thought I'd do this week is to go through a handful of these exercises as well. Now, I've created a PDF as well, and I'll attach it to the video, and as usual, just download it. It's got all of the lines on there as well. So let's zoom in, and I'll go through the ideas now. Okay, so the first movement we're going to work from is an old favourite. It's just ascending and descending groups of 4 over the pentatonic scale. So all we do is we start on the highest note and play 4 notes in a descending line, and then you reset onto the next note, play 4 notes, then reset again, and work your way across the neck. Yeah, and that takes you all the way across the neck, and of course you can turn that round into an ascending line and do exactly the same thing. So you play 4 notes, then reset for the next note. A little trick. If you play that last note with your 3rd finger, then that leaves your 2nd finger to reach for the note below. Yeah. The 2nd finger. Yeah, so that's an easy way of working your way across. So that gives you an ascending and a descending pattern. And of course you can move it to the other positions, which is well worth doing. And just drill it across all of the 5 positions going up and down the neck. So that gives you a basic sort of building block that you can use. Now, the problem with that as it stands is everything just sits bang on and hits that first, the downbeat of every beat, if you see what I mean. Which gets really kind of monotonous. So what we need to do is to introduce a little bit of syncopation, and that's what I've done with the 2nd line as well. So the 2nd line is very similar to the first, but you see the first 4 notes are slightly different, and what we're doing is we're emphasising the 2nd note in that group of 4, so you get this kind of sound. So very similar to the first line, but with that little offset on the downbeat. And similarly, you can turn that around. Yeah, and again, you can work on that across all 5 positions going up and down the neck. So we've got a couple of lines now. They're very similar to each other. One which uses a little bit of syncopation and one which doesn't. So that's a useful little thing to have in the bag. Now finally, when you're working with syncopation, one of the really common things you encounter is using 3 notes in a 4-note pattern. And that's what I've done with the final set of patterns. So you can see, actually, this is a really common set of notes. You'll hear this kind of emphasis throughout music. So what I'm doing here is just playing 3 notes and then 4 notes. So four groups of 3 and then 4 notes. Yeah. And you can kind of hear that, you know, if I took the first 4 notes of the first one, do you hear that, how that syncopation works between the 2 patterns? And again, with this one, you can take it across the neck as well. And you can turn it around. Yeah, and again you can work on that across all 4 positions as well. So now we've got a few patterns sort of building up, and the idea really is to work on these until you can play them reasonably fluently, until you can make your way across them. So you've got some motor skills, because that's really all we're doing, is we're building some fundamental motor skills that we can use for the next phase. So the next phase really, and the best way of doing it I've found, is to get a metronome and set it ticking at a really quite a low pace, so you can move around these shapes quite comfortably. But what I want you to do now is to forget all about that and just start to freestyle. And you'll find as you're doing this, you're drawing on the motor skills that you've been learning earlier, but you don't necessarily need to follow them anymore. The idea here is to just try and create that line that you can just keep moving on and on. And it really doesn't matter what you play or how you play it. You're just trying to get that patter of notes flying out, just hitting the downbeat of the metronome as well, and then you can start to increase the speed of the metronome as you get more comfortable with doing this. Okay, as I said, there's a PDF of all of this, so feel free to download that. It's got all of the patterns, just the first parts of each of them, so you get an idea just as a reminder. And like I say, work on all of these going up and down the neck so you can do it in each of the positions of the pentatonic scale. And this is a great exercise to do with a metronome as well. In fact, I'd really recommend that you do that, just because you want to be able to lock into the pocket of the beat when you're playing these kinds of songs. So you need something to give you that strict pulse so you can lock against it. So anyway, have fun with it, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.